Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. So another interesting week for the market. Now, last week we saw a little bit of softness throughout the market. This week we're seeing, okay, maybe a little bit of softness in Standard and Modern. However, Legacy is heating up a little bit. And there's probably a couple of reasons for that. One of which, this current weekend, at the time I'm recording this, there is a major Legacy event. We have a GP in Japan that is actually Legacy, believe it or not. So that has probably drawn a little bit of attention to the format and will probably continue to draw attention over the next couple of weeks, especially as the results of the GP come out this weekend. Also, of course, Eternal Masters, with the announcement that more of that product's being released to retailers. That, again, much like the first time it was released, there are some folks that are starting to think about Legacy and to get pointed in that direction. I think it also helps that we're in an awkward time for both Standard and Modern. For Standard, you have Aether Revolt coming out after the holidays, right? So you're going to be in the situation where the metagame's going to change. Players that are playing Standard really aren't super excited to jump into higher costing cards at this point because things could change drastically in another month and a half or so. And secondly, in March, we have Modern Masters 2017. So Modern players are a little hesitant to go out and make big purchases because they could get these cards cheaper when they get reprinted or if there's an announcement of a reprint within the next few months. So we're just in an awkward spot right now. Some people are kind of saying this is it, like the Magic recession is here. I don't know if it's here quite yet. Not to say that that won't happen at some point, but I think we're just in a really awkward time in the calendar is what we're really seeing. And the fact that Legacy is heating up is a indicator, at least, that people are still very interested in spending their money on cards. It's just a matter of what other factors are driving them at that current time. So we'll have to keep a close eye on it, as always. But having said that, let's jump into the actual market watch. I'm going to start off with Standard, as always. And let's look at the top 5 cards that lost value this week. Again, you're going to see cards here that really aren't cards that are bad or anything like that. I mean, these are cards that are being played quite a bit in the meta. But again, these are cards that were expensive, especially after the Pro Tour, and they're still stabilizing as more packs are being opened. That's for the most part what you'll see here. And coming in at number 5 is Aetherworks Marvel, down 58 cents to 503. Coming in number 4 is Nissa Vital Force, down 58 cents to 787. Number 3, Smuggler's Copter, down 59 cents to 12.99. So you will notice that even though, yes, these are cards that are seeing play, I mean, this is the perfect example of that. One of the most popular cards in Standard in quite some time. Going down in value is just due to the fact that packs are being open. Second thing you'll notice is these drops are very, very small. So the good news is Standard's, for the most part, holding pretty steady. It might not be increasing a whole lot, but it's also not decreasing a whole lot. So that's a good indicator. Coming in number 2 is Torrential Gearhulk, down 89 cents to 16.48. And finally, Virtuous Gearhulk, down $1.01 to 10.77. All right, let's look at the top 5 Standard cards that gain value this week. And you're going to notice here, of course, Blue White Flash, still a big driver of prices, even at this point. But also you're going to see some factors creep in from the world of Modern as well. Coming in number 5, hey, it's Chandra Torch of Defiance, up 55 cents to 2013. Good to see this card going up and not down. It's gone quite a bit since the pre-release time period, sure. But I've been saying all along, someone is going to figure out what to do with this card. And it looks like maybe that's starting to happen. She is seeing play in Standard Vehicles decks, as well as some of the other just aggro Boros decks out there. And guess what? She's also seeing Modern play. She's seeing a lot of play in Jund decks in the Modern format. I mean, that's awesome. So I do think this card is going to see a little more life. I don't think it's going to have a huge jump necessarily right away, but maybe it will stick between the $20 and $25 mark, which is good news for players that have these cards, considering she was actually under $20 earlier in the week. It seems like she's starting to make a little bit of a comeback. That's pretty awesome. Coming in number 4 is Selfless Spirit, up 61 cents to 9.59. Of course, key part of the Blue-White Flash deck. Coming in number 3, another Blue-White Flash favorite with Archangel Avacyn, up 64 cents to 20.90. Coming in number 2 is Grim Flare, up $1.03 to 21.38. Of course, still a key part of the Delirium decks. And speaking of Delirium decks, Liliana the Last Hope, up $1.10 to 41.22. Liliana, though, also seeing play in Modern in the Junk and Jund decks. A lot of play in the Jund decks, actually. So that's another indicator that she could be a pretty good long-term investment. She's still a little bit expensive now. Yes, she's seeing tons of Standard play, but also she was in a set that wasn't open as much as some of these other standard sets, so that's going to help her hold her value a little better than some cards. I do think eventually she will start to creep down a little bit. I mean, $40 is a pretty high price point for a standard card, but I do think long term she could be one to watch for sure. All right, let's move into Modern. And you're going to notice, again, Modern's a little bit soft with a few exceptions. And we'll get to that in a few moments when we see the value of the cards that are increasing. But right now, let's look at the cards that lost value. And you're going to see a lot of cards that potentially could be reprinted in Modern Masters 2017. Coming in number 5 is Vegevine, down $1.04 to $16.98. Number 4 is Death Shadow, down $1.06 to $11.37. So again, another example, not a huge decrease or anything like that. Are there still Death Shadow decks out there? Of course there are, and they're still doing very well. But again, it's just a really soft market right now. Players are just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with Modern Masters. Coming in number 3 is the Modern Masters version of Aether Vial, down $1.13 to $43.27. Both versions of Aether Vial spiked tremendously over the last couple months, so this is just kind of normal stabilization. Coming in number 2, Bridge from Below, down $1.19 to $14.99. This is the Future Sight version. And again, does this mean there's any issue with dredge decks in Modern? Of course not. Still a very popular deck. But again, the cards are just stabilizing. And coming in at number 1, all 3 versions of Tarmogoyf. This card has been soft. It continues to be soft. As a matter of fact, if you're in the market to pick these up, not a bad time probably to shop around. You're going to see deals on this that are probably even much cheaper than what's listed here because this card has gone down so much recently. There are folks that are probably trying to liquidate and get rid of it. So keep an eye out, especially big marketplaces like eBay or Amazon for things like that, because that could very well come up. Now, Modern Masters 2015 down $1.06 to $123.22, Future Sight down $1.63 to $150, and Modern Masters down $2.46 to $125. So even though these aren't huge drops in a given week, add these up with the last couple weeks and you start to notice a really strong trend in this card downsizing. Again, this could all change if we find out that this card is not in Modern Masters 2017. That will quickly stabilize this card and probably cause it to start creeping up again. But if it does see yet another reprint, you can expect this to continue to go down. All right, let's look at the cards that gain value this week. Now, I mentioned this earlier, there's a couple exceptions to the softness of the Modern market, and that's the Scad Red deck mostly. Scad Red's still very hot, but also Infect cards. You can notice there's some Infect cards on this list too. Those are probably 2 of the hottest decks right now, at least in the secondary market. Coming in number 5, Verdict Catacombs, up $2.63 to $71.22. This one surprised me a little bit just because its price point is already pretty high. In fact, it's much higher than the other fetch lands that are enemy colors, which made me feel like it will probably start to creep down a little bit. But I guess you don't want to underestimate the power of the Infect deck because this is one of the key cards there. Coming in number 4 is Through the Breach, up $2.73 to $46.90, and this has been on our list recently too. It has been slowly climbing. Again, Through the Breach decks are out there, they're doing well. Coming in number 3, Noble Hierarch, and we have both versions. Modern Masters 2015 up $2.84 to $65.33 with Conflicts up $3.11 to $68.33. Now again, yes, this card could see a reprint in a few months. However, it is a key part of that Infect deck, so a lot of people are just still going out there and picking it up regardless. And on top of that, this is playing a lot of other places, which includes Legacy and Vintage. Number 2, Copperline Gorge up $4.22 to $14.99, part of Scad Red. And finally, speaking of Scad Red, Koth of the Hammer up $6.18 to $18.83. Pretty healthy increase. I do think Scad Red is going to start slowing down a little bit as players get their cards. So I think we're reaching a peak probably within the next couple of weeks. And of course the meta will move on and other things will be hot for a while. So I do think if you have a bunch of Koths that you wanted to get rid of, this might be a good time to sell those. I do think he's going to start creeping back down pretty soon, but very nice spike and does show that there is some health definitely in the Modern market still. All right, let's move on to Legacy. So you're going to notice a couple things here. First off, the cards that lost value are not losing a lot of value. So on one hand, that seems kind of boring because it doesn't look like much is happening, especially when you have cards that are worth hundreds of dollars only losing a few dollars. But it's a huge, huge indicator that people are not necessarily abandoning their Legacy cards, that they're holding pretty steady. And that's a good sign for the health of this particular part of the market. So let's jump in and see what's lost value. Coming number 5 is Island of Walk Walk, down $460 to $85. Now, this card, Arabian Nights, rare, reserve list, $85 I think is a pretty decent deal for this if you're just into collecting those reserve list cards, especially Arabian Nights cards. This I wouldn't mind picking up for $85, quite honestly. So keep an eye on this one. I think in a couple months down the road we'll be talking about this as over $100. Coming in number 4, Guardian Beast, down $475 to $153.38. Another classic Arabian Nights rare card that's on the reserve list. And actually is very, very playable too in some places. So yeah, again, this card I think will definitely hold and increase its value over time. Coming in at number 3 is Unlimited Armageddon, down $627 to $39.95. There's a few cards in the Unlimited set that just kind of go up and down, up and down. Armageddon's one of them. Winter Orb's another. Sometimes Wrath of God creeps in there. Navineral's Disc has done that. So, I don't know. It's interesting to kind of see that happen with some of these cards. It could be a few drivers to it. I mean, first off, it just could simply be some anomalies in the secondary market. Secondly, it could be 93-94 format having a little bit of an influence because, again, players that play that format, they might want to trick out their deck a little bit, but don't have the money to spend on alpha and beta versions, so they go with Unlimited over the Revised. But I think it is important to note that Revised is legal in that format. I know that's a thing that does confuse a lot of folks, but there is a quote-unquote budget option for some of these cards, including Armageddon. And although if you're playing that format, you're probably not super concerned about your budget. You're probably in an okay place because that is a very expensive format to get into. But there are cheaper options. Revised is one of them. Also, cards from Fallen Empire and even most of the cards from the Dark are very, very affordable. So there still are ways to hobble together a deck in that format if you don't have tons of funding. And if that's the case, Revised is probably your best friend. So interesting anomaly, just something to look at here with Armageddon. It is number 3 on the list. Coming in number 2, Diamond Valley, down $699 to $203. So a little bit of a drop here, but still over $200. Another Arabian Nights rare, another reserve list card. And finally, coming in at number 1 is Underground Sea, down $9.71 to $560.02. Now, this is a dual land that's over $500, closing in at $600, only losing about $9 worth of its value this week. That is a huge indicator that Legacy is holding very, very steady. Now what you're going to see next is some of the increases, and there's a few significant increases on that list. All right, so let's look at the cards that gained value this week. Coming in number 5 is Nether Void, up $18.52 to $284.14. So this had a pretty big drop over the last couple weeks. It's recovering just a little bit. This was the target of a buyout a couple months ago. The card went up to about $350. So I think it's just finding its stable price point now, which will probably sit closer to the $300 mark, I think. Coming in number 4, the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, up $21.03 to $1,300. Well, it wouldn't be a countdown without the Tabernacle. And even though this seems like a decent size increase, again, you're looking at $1,300 cards, so this is relatively stable. Coming in number 3 is Bayou Unlimited version, up $22.16 to $279.80. So this is a nice indicator right here. I mean, we saw a dual land lose about $9 worth of value. Now here's another one gaining over $20 worth of value. So as a whole, dual lands as a set are increasing. So that's interesting to watch and definitely an indicator that things are on the rise. Coming in number 2 is Living Plain. This is up $37.22 to $101.98. Now, this is probably a target of a buyout. This is a pretty big jump in 1 week for this card. As a matter of fact, this is a huge percentage of its current value. So that's usually a good indicator that this is a buyout. However, a buyout happening in the legacy market definitely leads to the fact that there's interest in the legacy market, right? Or people would be trying to do buyouts in modern or what have you. So again, another indicator that with everything going on, people are looking at legacy. And finally, coming in at number 1 is Moat, up $52.88 to $644.39. So of course, I think we know the history of this card. There was a buyout a number of months back. And once they got reintroduced into the market, the price started to come down a little bit, but the price now has been going up again. So the question is, what's going on? Is there another buyout being targeted? I'm not quite there yet. I mean, maybe that's happening, but this could be normal price just ups and downs due to the fact that this is now a $650 card. So you're going to see some anomalies if people happen to pay in any given week a little more or a little less for the card, much like we see with the Tabernacle, just not quite at the same level, right? So that could be all that's going on, but we're going to have to watch this one close. I mean, this could also be a buyout potentially, but I don't know if it is. I'm not quite there yet. All right, well, having said that, that's the market watch for this week. So it's going to be really interesting over the next few weeks. I'm actually very excited to see what happens to Legacy next weekend after the GP's over, to kind of see how the market absorbs that information, if any decks emerge from that particular GP. There have been some changes recently to the Reanimation deck, and some new cards have been introduced to it, and they've actually seen some strength, even though they didn't make the top 5 this week. So I'm just kind of wondering if there's going to be some changes next week. I guess we'll see. But I do think, other than that, I think we're entering a period of softness through at least December, until people think about picking up Aether Revolt in January. And then I do think, of course, the standard market will come back to life. And then again, once we get closer to Modern Masters, the modern market will start to ignite. So that's kind of what I'm thinking anyway. I guess we'll see as we get closer. But until then, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.